Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Huzur is asking who had designed this arrangement. It's the camera people, Huzur has been told. And Huzur said, is there the arrangement they have made? They think that it's important for them to sit back. Huzur said, people can move forward. Huzur said, move forward a little bit more. Now, okay, that should be good. Huzur said, so that people at the back, they can move forward. So Huzur has started with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Huzur said, today, with the grace of Allah, this is the first day of this Ramadan, and this is the first fast today, and this is the first day of Dars of this year, 1997. This is 11th of January, 1997. And Surah An-Nisaa, last year we were commenting on when Ramadan ended, and as you said, where we had left off, we will start from there today, and it is verse number 22 of Surah An-Nisaa. As you said, we had covered 21st verse in the last dars, and we are going to continue now with the next verse, which is verse 22. As you said last year, the verse we had commented on, I will first recite that, verse 21.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإن أردتم استبدال زوج مكان الزوج وآتيتم إحداهن قنطارا فلا تأخذوا منه شيئا أتأخذونه بهتانا وإثما مبينا وكيف تأخذونه وقد أفضى بعضكم إلى بعض وأخذنا منكم ميثاقا غليظا ولا تنكحوا ما نكح آباؤكم من النساء إلا ما قد سلف إنه كان فاحشة ومقتا وساء سبيلا. ये रुकू यहाँ खत्म होता है, पहले इन्हीं आयत.
Huzur says this ruku ends here, so we will comment on the verses as we go along. The last year, the verse we were discussing, number 21 of Surah An-Nisaa, وَإِنْ أَرَدْتُمُ اسْتِبْدَالَ زَوْجٍ مَكَانَ زَوْجٍ, which means that if you desire to take one wife in place of another, and you have given one of them a treasure, take not aught, take not anything therefrom, because it will not be lawful for you to take it back. And the psychological points in there are also mentioned, that you were like one unit and you had offered your whole and soul to the other, and then to take back some of the things you had promised or given, it would be shameless. So in a marriage, even if a person wants to end that marriage, the rights of the woman should be upheld in this, and the men many times do not, and then there are various allegations brought. The men try that whatever haq meher they had to give, or the jewelry they had given, they would have some excuse to take it back, and in that they do not have any other than source left, and then they are bringing the allegations of immoral acts, and they say that now we have the right to take back whatever we had given them, and also we have the right not to settle their meher. So in this regards, Allah the Almighty says, وَكَيْفَ تَأْخُذُونَهُ وَقَدْ أَفْضَى بَعْضُكُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ وَأَخَذْنَا مِنْكُمْ مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا. How can you take it when one of you has been alone with the other? You've had that relationship of man and wife, and they, the women, have taken from you a strong covenant, promises. So Huzur says, with regards to the lexicon, the reference to lexicons, I will explain two important words here. Fada, you have heard in Urdu as well. It's used to mention the surrounds, and in forest as well, the clearing is mentioned as the fada. The openness is referred to in Lisanul Arab, the lexicon. Afda, they have mentioned in the usage that a person had taken the hand wherever it could go to. So this refers to the relationship of man and wife, and also about an opening, clearing, or with regards to the needle. The eye of the needle is referred to in the reference of speech, and also there is the context of touching something where the emotions also come into play, and in physical relationship, love is also a part of it. And so in all the usages for hands to have roamed around as an expression of love, such a pressure is applied where a person desires that the souls, the whole and soul unit is created. So Lisanul Arab and Aqrabul Mawarid, both these lexicons, have mentioned these meanings, and the word Mithaq is a covenant, a strong contracting bond. La yusiqu is also then the usage in the Holy Quran, a strong bonding. So the Holy Quran here says that like Allah the Almighty has bound something, nothing else can bind in that way. So be fearful of God, that He can bind you in a way nothing else can. And that is why a promise which is made stronger with vows, a pledge, a very strong pledge. So
और इसी तरह मिसाक मिसाक को दूसरी जगह भी
The word misaq is used in the Holy Quran.
से मिसाक लिया गया। तो दोनों मिसाक
The misaq,
माने तो एक हैं,
the bonding, the pledge
और हर मिसाक
which was made
एक ऐसे पुख्ता है जो
is mentioned. So every
से निकल
promise or pledge
लाकी गुंजाइश बाकी
out of which there is no room left for escaping. That is why in the word mithaq and ghaliza, the word ghaliz makes it even stronger, because the word ghaliz means
गरीब ऐसी चीज़ कहते हैं जो बहुत गाढ़ी
something which is
के साथ मजबूती से पैदा
solidified
और ऐसी सख्ती
to the point of absolute bonding,
जैसे गरीब से जाहिर की जाती है।
like metallic bonding.
कुरान करीम रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम को मुखातिब करके फरमाता है लौ कुंता फज़्ज़न
وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَظًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ
अगर कोई सख्त मिजाज होता
is the address to the Holy Prophet ﷺ, that if you were
रहम होता कि
hard-hearted,
रहम की गुंजाइश न हो
that there was no room for mercy in your heart,
ये सब तेरे
لَنْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ, that these people would have
पैगंबर होना
run away from around you, and only your message being conveyed to them would not have been of any help.
फैलाओ मिजाज को फैलाओ और सबके अखलाक को कायम रखना मगर लफ्ज़ गलीज़ है
So it is the word ghaliz
इसका मतलब है बहुत
here, which means
गाढ़ी चीज़
something
मजबूत और
so solid and so strong.
तो मिसाक़न गलीज़ा
The misaqan ghaliza,
कुरान करीम में अल्लाह ताला फरमाता
the
है
usage here,
वाखज़ना मिनकुम
وَأَخَذْنَا مِنْكُمْ مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا,
उन्होंने तुमसे एक
that they have taken from you a very strong covenant.
बांधा है नहीं बल्कि अखज़ना मिनकुम
And akhazna
तुमसे अहद व पैमान हासिल कर चुके
means that they have drawn it from you.
हैं अहद व पैमान के मुतालिक मुफस्सिरीन ने
And about this, the commentators have
इनको
taken different meanings, but we do not need to go into each one.
मैं आपको बता देता
This is the guiding factor, that aqd nikah, the bonding of nikah, is also taken as a covenant.
ध्यान हो रहा है इसका उससे
But what is referred to here
प्यार और मोहब्बत
is
जो अहद व पैमान
the promises which
ये सारा
are taken
पहले
with a loving relationship,
ताल्लुक से पहले की बातें बयान नहीं कर
because this is not talking of the relationship before nikah,
उनको एक दूसरे से इस तरह
that you two had come together,
हर हिस्सा इंसानी जिस्म का
that every
समझ कर सकता है
part of your body
ताल्लुकात के दौरान
came together,
मिनकुम मिसाक़न
and in that relationship,
मजनू से जब खलवत करती हैं तो
then
जमाने मोहब्बत को बांधने के लिए
the
मज़ीद अहद देते हैं
with that bonding
प्यार को रोके तो
of love, then
हमारे सिवा के
women many a time demand that you promise me that you will not look at anyone else, you will not go to anyone else.
इसके जवाब में जैसा कि
And this verse of the Holy Quran
बल्कि शायद उससे भी ज़्यादा
says that the man gives that promise. As a matter of fact, he goes further. He says that even more than giving you my word, I am going to be so loyal to you. Even if I die, I will not even look at another woman.
ये सारे अहद हैं जो
So these are all the kind of
फरमाता है कि
promises, and Allah the Almighty says, have some shame that now when you have decided to break that relationship, then it would be a very lowly act that you then demand that she also returns whatever gifts you had given,
इससे ज़्यादा इंसानी बदल मिल नहीं सकता
that you had been together in a relationship that greater
जितनी भी गुंजाइश है
than that there is no other scope
हाथ तक पहुंचा
you had reached
इस
the heights of that relationship in every form, and you had then given promises, and you had given your word and made that promise. Now you're forgetting everything, and you even want to take your gifts back. The gift that you have already given, you must not even think of taking that back. All the other discussions in lexicons have verified these meanings. Huzu says, let me look up the notes if there is any other point worthy of mention here, which will add something. The Holy Quran has also mentioned the word azabun ghaliz. Huzur is saying to Hafiz Sahib, if he remembers that usage, it is said so in the lexicon in Aqrabul Mawarid and Lisanul Arab. They have mentioned the word azabun ghaliz. Now, in that verse, which is being mentioned by Hafiz Sahib, Surah Luqman, verse 25, in that Allah the Almighty has said that we will grant them benefits of the world for some time, and then after that we will compel them to move towards torturous punishment from where there is no element of relief left for them. Land which is so hard that which will not allow the seeds to go in, to seep in and sprout, that is also called ghaliz, that it is so hard. And some people have only, some commentators have only mentioned meher, but as you said here, this is much wider. This is not only the meher, all other gifts are mentioned in this reference. Now, the difficulty is that in most breakages of marriages, people forget all laws and guidance of Sharia. They even break all humane standards, and men want to free themselves, and they then go into the courts and challenge, and they say that this woman is so bad, she's so vile, we don't have to give her anything. So the qaza remains in the law of Sharia, but the Holy Quran has spoken of all psychological facts as well. And then the next verse, وَلَا تَنْكِحُوا مَا نَكَحَ آبَاؤُكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ إِلَّا مَا قَدْ سَلَفَ. Allah the Almighty says, and marry not those women whom your fathers had married. This subject is linked to a practice of the Arabs, and because the mushrik people, they entered Islam in large numbers, there were those who had married the widows of their fathers.
और उसकी बेहैसियत होने पर करार दिया।
This showed
अरब सोसाइटी
the
को कुछ भी मकाम हासिल
woman having no value,
करने को विरासत के तौर पर
no status. The woman was distributed as part of the inheritance, as property, as an article of property. And when a man died, they in those times used to have many more wives, and the son or the other sons, there were more than one. As you said, I had explained that practice in a previous dars, that they would place their shawl over the woman, that now this woman cannot marry any other, and I have chosen you for myself. And sometimes to torture them, they would not even marry them, and some would marry as well. So this was an evil act, and Allah the Almighty says, وَلَا تَنْكِحُوا مَا نَكَحَ آبَاؤُكُمْ, and marry not those women whom your fathers married. Now, in the word Aba, it is not only the father, it can also mean the grandfather or uncle as well. It happened many a time that even a grandfather, like the grandfather's brother, would be very close to this person in age. So all those abaukum are covered in this, that those who are like fathers and like the grandfathers in relationship, illa ma qad salaf, except for what is in the past, which is a bygone. Let bygones be bygones. Allah the Almighty says, innahu kana fahishatan wa maqta. It is a thing which is foul and hateful. Maqta is something which is revolting, and that if you see something, it brings those kind of emotions in your heart which are revolting. So they are called maqt. Maqt means sin as well. It means evil and immoral as well. So all those meanings are contained in this word, maqta. And then the word was sa'a sabila, and it is an evil way. It's a very bad path to follow.
Refer to? Okay.
Huzur is looking at the reference and asking the private secretary why was it placed here. Now, the word salaf, ja'alnahum salafan, is a word used in the Holy Quran. That's something which is in the past and is buried, and aslaf are the ancestors who are now part of the past. And also salaf means something which has gone past, which has outstripped. That bygones is the meaning in this word, salaf. Yusuf says there are some other discussions which are not related. And from the crops, it's like gambling as well, that
their self
Self is also something where people draw some money, like gambling, before even the crop is ready.
सरकार के फायदे के लिए तो है जो मजबूर है उसको वक्त से पहले ज़रूरत है और कुछ फायदे आपस में बांट
And sometimes, people draw these kind of benefits from each other.
एक सौदा है जिसमें कुछ नापसंदीगी के पहलू भी दाखिल हो जाते
There are the elements of displeasure and pleasure as well, so there has to be due care that has to be taken.
हैं दूध को शराब का निचला बचा हुआ हिस्सा
And salafa is the remnants of the drink
और दुआ
in the container, and
सलफ अल्लाह
also
ये सलफ वही है जो
then the prayer for the deceased also has this salafa, that
बहुत
the ones
मुख्तलिफ किस्म के मानी बयान किए जाते
who are
हैं
left
बाद मौके पर लोग
behind, they are mentioned here. Then the word fahisha,
और बाद फायदा से मुराद
and fahisha means
बदी का बहुत जो हद से गुजर जाना
a bad and immoral act which has gone beyond limits.
है
So the usages of this word
मौजूद और रसीद में
fahish
किसी बदी का हद से ज़्यादा बढ़ जाना
said that
फाहिश है और फहाशी
when something goes beyond limits,
कौम कुछ कहते हैं जब कोई कौम बदी में बहुत
and fahishul qawm, where a whole nation is indulgent in foul acts and also picking on somebody, and foul accusations are also called tafahush.
एक दूसरे पर गंदे इल्जामात लगाएं और
When
बेइज्जती की बातें करें तो भी सफा
shameless expressions are made, that is also called tafahush.
इमाम रागिब ने
Hazrat Imam Raghib
बहुत बुरी बात
has mentioned that this is
बाज एक
an act referred to as something very bad.
कारी
Every evil act
हर पास
is fahish, but every
कारी को फास कहा जा सकता है फास का हिस्सा
every bad act can be called
जरूरी नहीं
fahish, but every fahish is not.
आयात से मैंने
Then the other way round,
कहा
as you said,
अखलाकी
what it means is such moral
नहीं हो
bad deed that it is so evident,
मगर बदी खुल के फैल रही है कौम
but where a bad
ये उसके
inclination is spreading,
नजला जुकाम भी या बहुत गहरी मर्जन
then like the communicable
शायर हैं तो आपस
diseases, it turns into an epidemic.
में रानी के दिन
The Holy Quran
फाशा इस्तेमाल फरमाया
has used the word fasha.
ये नजदीक पाया जाता
You will see this subject,
है बदियों को इजाजत देना खुल के
that to give permission for such acts which will spread in the people, that is a great sin, and the Holy Quran has admonished that you keep an eye on that.
मक्स का माना
The word maqt,
अलबुग़्ज़
maqta,
लिमन तराहु ताअत
the different usages of that,
ऐसा बुग़्ज़ जो किसी बदी को देखने के बाद में अफसोस पैदा हो जाता है
such kind of a hateful, resentful reaction that you feel
सुनाते
at observing something. So the Holy Quran has spoken of it, that marrying the widows of your fathers,
ये माने जिसके
when that is mentioned, then the words here used
नजर में बाजू नजर में
are that it is such a revolting act.
लोगों में इस रिवाज के बावजूद
And in spite of this practice,
और
the Arabs also themselves looked upon this with revulsion, and even the offspring was then looked upon with revulsion, and they were not given an equal status. that they were the offspring of such a union. So this is something which is against human nature as well, that there is a revulsion against it, which is not acceptable to human nature. And this is also a revulsion which causes anger. Some scholars, especially the Shias, have quoted some incidents of sons marrying the wives, the widows of the father, and some bad intent is also evident in those reports. Allama Tabrisi has written that the wife of your father or the wife of the son are then illegal for you to marry. Imam Abul Fiza has highlighted the affront in this concept. Also says these are all different views, while the revolting act is quite evident. That where the Almighty says that do not indulge in something so revolting, because the maqt is from God, that this is something which will become a sin against God. Some commentaries have jotted down such reports that you would be amazed at why these people have collected these, while Allama Fadha, in 574 year of migration he had passed away, he says that one man was going with the flag of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and somebody asked him where he was headed to, and he said that the Holy Prophet ﷺ has told me that I should go and put to death a man who has married the widow of his father. So these kind of reports, you will see that these are concoctions. You will not find them in reliable ahadith, because there was a lot of care that was taken, and this kind of thing would not have happened, that a man was walking with the flag of the Prophet ﷺ and somebody asked him, there is no name of the father mentioned, no name where this punishment was dispensed. So these kind of reports have been sent in by our scholars to me, but in my estimation they are not worthy of taking into account. The last words here are that the man was passing by with a green flag. Now, another point is that the Holy Prophet ﷺ's flag was black in color. Now, where did they make it green? This also shows that somebody had concocted this, that somebody said, "Oh uncle, where did the Holy Prophet ﷺ send you as he was coming back?" He said, "I had gone to punish that man who had married the widow of his father." Now, 700 years after the migration of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, for this report to have put on record. This is amazing that how these things, they were collected. They have done a big injustice by doing this. Jesus says, what is the need for this? That the father here might mean the paternal grandfather or the maternal grandfather, to marry the widows of them as well. Now these people, they let their imaginations run, and in another commentary here it is said that you are not allowed to marry your maternal grandmother as well. So said, may God have mercy for these people to go on into these kind of ideas. Huzur said, I had made a point that there is a bad intent also, which is included in this concept. They have mentioned some companions that they had done this in the past. Before that, Huzur said, I will present the translation of the promised Messiah ﷺ, which is very concise, that the women that your forefathers had married, you must not marry them, but what is in the past is past. And then it is said that doing this kind is revolting and which causes a lot of anger. So here the concept of anger is also, it's outrageous. That is the concept mentioned in this word, that such cases were considered illegitimate. So they say that even in those days it was considered illegitimate. Huzur says this was their custom, and because they had given that as the right of the heir, in spite of looking at it with revulsion, they had given that as a right. So here, for them to say that why they, the commentators think that it was such cases were considered illegitimate and looked down with contempt as having a vague ancestry, that this is something which is very, which is like mean, and some of those who pose as religious leaders, so they are saying that these were the people that after the passing away of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, they were considered leaders while this was in their past. So this is a stinging attack. Even Wary has not carried out such attacks, where this writer, Mr. Mir, he has done this. Mr. Wary, the Orientalist, he will pick on something very weak and he will take that as an excuse. But he does not concoct, he does not fabricate reports. However weak those reports are, they are present somewhere. While Mir Sahib, his imagination is very fertile and he fabricates such things, and in the commentary of the Holy Quran you would think that it might be present. Last time as well we had to look for all the books and nowhere was it mentioned, and this time as well.
एक हवाला दिया है तिरमिज़ी का,
he had given the
और बेचारे मैं
reference to Tirmidhi, and I had sent that,
माजरत आई है
and today they have sent me the apology and said that we have stayed awake so many nights. We worked day and night, but it is not possible to find it anywhere.
उनका रंग देखें कैसे
And look at the damage he has caused by this kind of stinging attack. And people say about Rushdie that he has
ऐसे लोगों के
attacked,
जैसे बीस साल
while
उन पर बिना
these kind of people, they do more damage. Now this Rushdie had relied on some of the books, but this man, Mir Sahib, he has not relied on any books that are even available anywhere. So they're all fabrications.
रॉडवेल साहब
Rodwell has,
मैंने देखे हैं,
as you said, out of all the other Orientalists,
उनमें रॉडवेल को इज्जत की नजर से देखना पड़ता है।
Mr. Rodwell has to be respected, that even if he makes a mistake, he hasn't done that with a bad intent. As far as possible, Mr. Rodwell
जो जायज माना
investigates, and the meaning that then appears, he will present that. From that point of view,
हवाला आ रहा है,
because we are getting a reference here, I feel that I should give you an introduction that who this man is.
तो रॉडवेल,
Mr. Rodwell,
उनका पूरा नाम है रॉडवेल,
James Rodwell,
कैम्ब्रिज यूनिवर्सिटी
he was a professor of Cambridge University,
व्यवस्था सदी
and in the last century, in 1861, he had published a translation of the Holy Quran into English. In 1876, then he
का इजाफा किया,
added an index and published it again with some additions, and
इजाफा करके दूसरा एडिशन शायद
that is how his second edition came into being. In 1909,
मुकदमा के साथ
Professor Margoliouth had then published a third edition of this translation of Rodwell, and in 1734, Rod Sale had presented a translation
वो अपनी पुरानी बात हो चुकी
which had surfaced, but that was old, and Rodwell's translation was considered much better,
है, गलती भी कह सकते हैं,
except one
कह सकते हैं
mistake, or we can say he had tried to present this service that the present order of the Holy Quran is not with in line with the revelation, but it is as it should have been,
एक तो
because the revelation of the Holy Quran, as it came, it was recorded, and
मुनासिब और
as it was proper to present the laws in accordance to the demands of the time, and logically whatever was to be
बाद में शरीफ की तफासिर नाज़िल हुई, वो
the basic principles, they were given first, and then the details came later. But when the book had to be maintained for record and for reference forever,
और फिर
then the order had to be different. And then when you look at the Holy Quran collectively, and it has so many meanings, and the meanings are linked,
की बहस जो है वो अकेली
then the
दलील नहीं बन सकती,
discussion of when it was revealed
ताल्लुक से आप एक दूसरे से आयत
did not have to be in that order, because if you just keep that in view, you can see one way of linking
अक्सर
to the subjects, and most of our scholars have
तवज्जो हटा दी,
placed too much focus on that and then removed the focus from the glory of the Holy Quran.
जरूरत पैदा
An incident occurred when it was the demand of the time, and for the Holy Quran to be quiet at that time, and then after 10 years for the Holy Quran to give a directive, it would be beyond demands of wisdom.
आयात का नज़ूल लाजिम,
So the verse of the Holy Quran had to descend at the required time, and it so happened. But because these incidents, they are linked to each other, and a person could have said that a man
अहकामात जारी किए हैं वक्त की आवाज़,
had received that revelation in accordance to the demand of the time. And the order as it continued is how the verses were linked. This would not be in favor of the Holy Quran. You can say that there is nothing against it, that this was the logical way, but to say that this word of God is so glorious that from the beginning to the end it is linked in its subjects, and there is great depths in the meanings, and there is no verse which is not linked to the previous one and to the one after, and there is no surah which is not linked. This subject, this concept, if you change the order, then if human beings can try and do that, it would be impossible, because the revelation came in accordance to the need of the time, and then the meanings are changed. Like, for example, about Surah An-Nisaa, where the scholars have agreed that after the third year of Hijrah, after the Battle of Uhud, and up to the fifth year of Hijrah, fifth year of migration, while some Western scholars have said that there are verses which were revealed in Mecca. But what they mean by that is that when the Holy Prophet ﷺ had come to Mecca after the conquering of Mecca, then they were revealed. While Veri says that there is at least one verse from Mecca in which Ya Ayyuhan Nas are mentioned, and he says that the reason is that the Jews were addressed and the people of the book were not addressed, and the Jews were not addressed. Ya Ayyuhan Nas, that O ye people, was mentioned. These words had come later. So he said, Ya Ayyuhan Nas ittaqu rabbakum allazi khalaq. This verse is addressing the people, so he has placed it in Mecca. But all scholars have said that this verse was revealed in Medina, and Mr. Veri says that no, this will actually express the glory of the Holy Quran, that this verse was revealed in Mecca, while he is not presenting any proof for this idea. So this Surah An-Nas says, like I have said, that out of these it was revealed in the latter part. Sorry, Surah Al-Baqarah, and previously Huzur was mentioning Surah An-Nisaa, and now Surah Al-Baqarah. They have been placed in the beginning of the Holy Quran, in the text. And if it was done by human hand, then it was not humanly possible that there would be a link in the verses and in the chapters. But there is such astonishing links that it is totally astounding. So the order is not as it was revealed, as it was required for later use. It's been placed in that, and there is also the verification that this deed on the part of Hazrat Usman Radhiyallahu anhu, that where any verse was to be placed to decide that, this was something which was given as a favor of God. It was verified by God the Almighty, and there is no flaw. As the demand of logic would be, it is like that. So Mr. Rodwell, to see that how it was revealed, in what order, he has or place the translation in that order of revelation. This is something which do not like, but otherwise he is very careful in his translation. He says except what is already past does not mean that stepmothers taken as wives before this verse,
stepmothers taken as wives before this verse was revealed,
whether they could be detained. What it means simply is that such men should amend, and no harm will come to them, because for their unlawful acts of the past they will be forgiven. That if these women were to be divorced after this revelation had come. So this is quite a just decision he has taken with regards to this translation. That is exactly what it means, that because if you've done that before, so you can keep them. No. Azuz says it's Mr. Wary, who out of the Orientalists, he is the most biased. He differs. He says our comment is that women for whom it was unlawful to marry, they were to be divorced at once after this verse was revealed. But in this version, women whom your fathers have had, the pre-Islamic religion of Arabia not only allowed such marriages, but made such women as lawful part of the son's inheritance. And the reform Muhammad had, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in respect to the future only. What was already past was allowed to remain unchanged. In the meanness of their attacks, you can see that there is no other example. From this verse, he has translated it, but he hasn't fabricated it, because there are other kings of fabrication. They don't need any help from outside. Surah An-Nisaa, verse 24, and we have given the references. Now we will continue with that. Azur is asking whether it was recited, and Azur is asking to be reminded.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم حرمت عليكم أمهاتكم وبناتكم وأخواتكم وعماتكم وخالاتكم وبنات الأخ وبنات الأخت وأمهاتكم التي أرضعنكم وأخوانكم من الرضاعة وأمهات نسائكم وربائبكم اللاتي في حجوركم من نسائكم التي دخلتم بهن فإن لم تكونوا دخلتم بهن فلا جناح عليكم وحلائل أبنائكم الذين من أصلابكم وأن تجمعوا بين الأختين إلا ما قد سلف إن الله كان غفورا رحيما والمحصنات من النساء إلا ما ملكت أيمانكم كتاب الله عليكم وأحل لكم ما وراء ذلكم أن تبتغوا بأموالكم محسنين غير مسافرين فما استمتعتم به منهن فآتوهن أجورهن فريضة ولا جناح عليكم فيما تراضيتم به من بعد الفريضة إن الله كان عليما حكيما. ये यहाँ से पढ़ने हुर्रमत देखो ये जो है ये लंबा दफ्तर संभाल रहे हैं.
Hazur has recited verses 24 and 25 of Surah An-Nisaa. Previously, in the previous verse of the Holy Quran, Allah the Almighty had given the directive not to marry women that the forefathers had married before. And then it has continued. First of all, the subject is mentioned of holding the honors of relationships, and then this verse 24, Allah the Almighty says, "Forbidden to you are your mothers." Now in that definition of mother, all other mothers, as are mentioned in the previous verse, they are all forbidden for you to marry, and also your daughters and your sisters and your father's sisters and your mother's sisters and brothers' daughters and sisters' daughters and your foster mothers that have breastfed you and your foster sisters and the mothers of your wives, that is mothers-in-law, and your stepdaughters who are your wards by your wives who are from, these are daughters of your wives from previous marriages. Such wives with whom you have had relationships of husband and wife, then the daughters of those wives who were from previous marriages, they are also forbidden to you to marry. And also, then the wives of your sons that are from your loins, and it is forbidden to you to have two sisters together in marriage, except what has already passed, that there won't be any punishment prescribed for doing this, for practicing this, but you have to end that immediately, except what has already passed will entail that you will end it now. Surely Allah is most forgiving, merciful. Hazur says that some people have taken it as a revelation in response to the criticism of marrying Zaid's divorced wife. But that previous verse is not linked to the marriage with Hadrat Zainab Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anha. So the occasion for revelation, as people look for and they discuss that, they have also served, but they have been very damaging as well in some of their statements, because there are many fabrications, and some people thought that this is how it must be linked, because people who look for the occasion of revelation, they want to have some incident that they can find so that they felt that would complete their knowledge. And so this search took them to reports which had no clue which had no verification, and even then they overlooked the care of recording such kind of reports. So Zu says that it is in Ruhul Maani, Lama Rusi is also mentioned it, but this is useless. This discussion is pointless. And that verse about the nikah with Hazrat Zainab anha, that focuses one more to the state of the heart of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. Allah the Almighty says that it was in your heart that there would be this objection. So Allah the Almighty had clarified that, and whatever people want to say, it doesn't make any difference. So this has got nothing to do with that verse about the Ummahatul Mu'mineen. In the discussion about this fi hujurikum, with this scholars have taken the discussion allati fi hujurikum as if this is something additional. This is to focus or highlight the revulsion of such an act. They say that every such daughter who is the daughter of a woman, that you married that woman, but she had a daughter from a previous marriage, so she's unlawful for you to marry the daughter. Some people say that it is mentioned here that if this girl is brought up in your house, then it is not lawful that when she reaches the age of puberty you marry her. So this is established that no commentator would agree on marrying the mother and the daughter, but if you had married the mother, of course in the presence of the mother there is no question of marrying the daughter. If the mother dies or if she is divorced, then the question is whether then the man can marry that daughter who's from another husband, and this daughter was brought up elsewhere and there was no link of any kind. So whether this verse declares that daughter, that stepdaughter, unlawful to marry or not, that is the question. Allah the Almighty here says about the sisters as well, that you must not marry two sisters together. If one sister had died, then the other one can be married. As two sisters are not allowed to be married together, but if one is deceased or one is divorced, then the other one can be married. But the scholars have differed with regards to the daughter. This is just an educational debate, because this is some exception, and Huzur says, in my estimation, there is no question of this ever happening, that a person would marry a woman who had daughters from a previous marriage, and then the wife dies, and for him to have the occasion of marrying one of the daughters.
कबूल ही नहीं की मेरे नजदीक
Huzur said, I have not accepted for this verse their discussion on the occasion for revelation. This is not applicable here at all.
ये रबायब की जो बहस चल रही लुग़वी
Now,
इस मज़मून से ताल्लुक़ नहीं है ये
the words as expressed in lexicons and the scholars have looked at different meanings of the word rabaib.
कहते हैं रब्बातुल अदीमा बिस्सम में वद्दवा बिल
The usages in Arabic language, they have looked for
चमड़े को मक्खन लगा
that it
नाई लगा
refers to the
रगड़ कर नरम कर
buttering of the leather until it softens, and then to apply honey on it and make it useful. Now, how is that usage related to this verse? So it says they look for these meanings.
रबायब कहने में ये मक्खन लगा कर नरम
Now, the word rabaib refers to the daughters of a previous marriage. Now, where do we apply this other meanings? Now, the scholars keep looking for these kind of explanations. Huzur says that in our country they have this making of gulkand, of making the sweet mixture from the petals of flowers to make it sweet. It usually doesn't end up tasting sweet.
ये लफ्ज़ रबूबियत से ताल्लुक़ रखता
The word
है
rabab
कहते हैं
comes from rabubiyat,
नबातात पर मुश्तमिल
from the word rab, and it is for the flourishing of something, and rabaib here
वो बेटियां
would be
अल्लाह की हुजूर को
those daughters
जो तरबियत
allati fi hujurikum, that they become
का लिया जो वो बादल
your daughters like you took part in their bringing up,
तुमसे पैदा नहीं
but they were born of another father. You are not their father. Huzur is looking through the notes, and Huzur says, Asla bikum.
दरअसल कमर की जो है मजबूत हड्डी है उनको
Sulb
कमर के लिए
actually refers to the backbone,
क्योंकि कमर के ऊपर सारी बिना है
but because that is the basis of the human structure,
मल्टी तौर पर
so
पर बोझ डालते
centrally the focus, the burden is on the back. So that is why the figure of speech that somebody's back was broken,
हैं तो फिर सब कुछ रह जाता
because if that is broken, then everything else is affected. So
है और मजबूत
sulb actually means that bone which is central and strong.
हमारी अपनी नस्ल
So aslabikum means from your progeny, from your seed, so to speak.
फरमाता है अल्लाह वहलाइलु अबनाइकुम लजीना मिन अस्लाबिकुम
وَهَلَائِلُ أَبْنَائِكُمُ الَّذِينَ مِنْ أَصْلَابِكُمْ.
सुल्ब और इख्तिलाब हड्डियों से गूदा निकालने को भी कहते हैं
Sulb and aslab is also referred to the removing of the marrow
ये अस्लाबिकुम
of the bone.
वो औलाद जो तुम्हारे अपने खून के
So what it means is that
हड्डियों का वो
the offspring that you get, which are the product of your marrow, your bone, your blood,
आराम पाने वाले
they're your blood relations.
नजर मुश्तरक रखते हैं ये तो बिल्कुल ज़ाहिर व बाहिर है मेरे ख्याल में इसमें किसी
As it says, the commentators have gone into great depths on various descriptions and usages of the words. We don't have to go into that detail.
उस आयत की बहस में एक ऐसी अजीब
But the commentators have taken a very strange debate in this subject,
आगाज की तालीम
which is related to the creation of man. They say that in Aslab there is the sanctity. Then
औलाद ने क्या
what would Hazrat Adam have done? What would his children have done? So
शुरू में शरीयत ये इजाजत दी होगी
they have then tried to verify that Sharia must have given some permissions in the beginning, because they think that Adam was the first man and Eve was made from the rib of Adam, and they don't then
को बेटी की हैसियत है
discuss whether Hawa would be
बाप से मुराद
like a daughter,
चीजों से बनना है
because if aslab means made from the bone and blood,
वहाँ उठना चाहिए
then that would be the first question, that how could he marry
पर आगे चल पड़ते
a being which was like his daughter. Then they go forward that there must be sons and daughters. Then how did they then reproduce? And they have then continued at length on these debates in Ruhul Maani
राबे अफा 252
on pages 252 253.
दरअसल नाकाबिल एतमाद हो
Azuz says usually the pages are not reliable, because when you look at different prints you find different pages. But so look under this verse and you will find it, that as far as the marrying of daughters, it seems, they say, it was essential at the time of Adam. Azuz said
जरूरत का मजमून उठा रहे हैं
nowadays women are
जरूरत है जाए
asking questions that what is the need. So
कानून जरूरत के ताबिक सब कुछ जाए
under the law of need, everything becomes lawful. So the scholars have debated this. They say that at the time of Adam there was the need.
अल्लाह क्या करे
What could Allah do?
आदम बनाया दूसरा
One Adam was created. Nauzubillah, he did not have the ability to make another one. If he had made two, then it would have resolved a lot of problems. Then they say that
जायज था
then it was essential because of the need. After
हजरत हव्वा
pregnancy,
हर हमल के बाद एक लड़का और एक लड़की बनी
Hazrat Hawa had one boy and one girl.
बराबर भी कर दिया ताकि यह ना हो कि कुछ
So they have made it equal, that otherwise some brothers would have been without wives. Now look at their fanciful imagination.
के बाद एक लड़का और
They say that Hazrat Hawa, Eve, would have a boy and a girl born to her
पैदा होने वाली बेटी लड़की
consecutively, and then that two would marry.
पैदा होने वाला लड़का दूसरे वाले हमल से शादी कर लेता ये भी छोड़ देता यहाँ उम्र का फर्क ठीक करने की खातिर
Now, to create
दोनों बहन भाई
this,
हमल से हों
they
और उम्रें भी बराबर हों
have said that okay, they were
हमसे कहते हैं कि मर्द की जो
equal because they require in their own estimation that the boy would be older. So they have said that first a boy would be born,
कि दूसरे हमल से पैदा होने वाला बेटा पहले हमल से पैदा होने वाली लड़की से शादी कर लेता
Azu says no, actually they have written it the other way around in order, that first the girl would be born, and then in the next pregnancy a boy would be born, and the boy would marry this girl.
इस सूरत में एक को जोड़ा बाहर लड़का बड़ा हो जाता जो पहले था और लड़की जो बची है तो बात वही बनी है दरअसल
And so
लेकिन ये दूसरे तरीके से
in effect they have
बाद
created these matches, and they say that some Muslims don't accept this view. So they say some Muslims don't accept this. So the resolve they have presented is, listen to this. They say that Allah the Almighty sent the hurs from Jannah,
हुए भेजे थे और आदम के बेटों ने उनसे शादी
and Adam's sons married those hurs.
अब इस पर एक और सवाल नहीं उठाया, कोई और एक दूसरा उठा दिया, ये सवाल नहीं उठाया।
Then they have
बेटियां थी
brought forth another
ये
question.
आए थे तो
That then what about the daughters?
वो कहाँ गई?
Were there some male hoods sent? Because these scholars, they just have this concept of hoods being feminine, so they have resolved the problem of the boys, but they haven't resolved what happened to the girls. But then they raise another question,
इस सूरत में ये नस्ल महज आदम की औलाद नहीं होगी,
that this would show
अक़ीदा बिल इज्मा गलत।
that these would not be then the offspring of Adam, all of them.
नस्ल आदम की नहीं रहेगी, बल्कि हूरों की।
Then there would be the Hurs who would have come from the paradise.
वहाँ से क्यों आएंगे? ये एक और सवाल उठा। इन्हीं उलमा का अक़ीदा
Now these same scholars,
फरमाए गए
they believe that Hazrat Adam alayhi salam was created in paradise, and then when he earned the wrath of God, then he was sent away, and if that was the case, then Allah the Almighty would have sent them all together. Hazur says these kind of fabrications, they haven't got a leg to stand on. And Hazur says the reason why I'm telling you all this is that the
माँ के ज़माने से बहुत पहले था।
Holy Quran's span of time is of much beyond the time these scholars can imagine.
ज़हनी कैफियत ये थी,
This was their line of imagination. They were tangled in those
माफ़ी नहीं थी,
fibs that they could not understand all this.
इसी ज़माने की पब्लिक। ये मैं महज आप
So Huzur says that
के तौर पर नहीं बता रहा
I am not telling you these things as jokes. I just want to present the comparisons to you, that in the imagination of a man and then in the imagination of those who are in times of enlightenment, and the Holy Quran, which was revealed 1400 years ago, it has no shadows in it of darkness. It is so clear and so distinct that there is no shadow of any doubt. Allah the Almighty has said in the opening verse that La Raiba Fi, there is no doubt in it. And these scholars, they have all kind of imaginary problems they have created. The Holy Quran does not need to depend on their commentary.
उनमें हज़रत आयशा सिद्दीक़ा रज़ी अल्लाह ताला अन्हा की ये हदीस
The hadith from Hazrat Aisha radhiyallahu ta'ala anha is very
और इसी पर
well known, and everyone is agreed to that,
नस्ली
that
रिश्तों के तकाज़े हैं।
whatever the requirement of the relationships,
मैंने वही तकाज़े रज़ात से पैदा
the same is then introduced in the
कायल वही होंगे जो हकीकी वालिद
milk relationships
रिश्तों के ताल्लुक
of fostering, where a mother outside the
है क्या,
blood relationship has suckled a baby.
तब वो खैरात
So different scholars have presented different ideas.
कर पी लेना दूध,
Some people say that just having one mouthful of milk from a woman makes that woman a mother.
हदीस है बुखारी की, उससे पता चलता है वो बहुत ही वाज़ेह है इस मामले में।
But there is a hadith in Bukhari which is very clear,
महज एक आध
and that shows that not one mouthful
बाकायदा कम से
establishes that.
पेट भर कर दूध पिलाने
At least once a baby who has a full tummy
से जो
from
रात हैं वो
a mother, that from foster mother,
इसके फिर जितने असरात
then the effects, the physical effects will become part of that child, then
ये हदीस
this becomes the avenue of fostering through the
में भी दर्ज है
breast milk.
मगरूर
This is also in Ruhul Maani that Hazrat Aisha Ta'ala Anha has reported that the Holy Prophet ﷺ came and there was a man who was sitting there
जो
in my house
साथ मेरा कोई रिश्ता नजर नहीं आता
with whom it seemed I had no relationship. The Holy Prophet ﷺ was surprised and looked on with surprise.
मैंने अर्ज
Then I said that, O Prophet of Allah, this is my foster brother.
हज़रत आयशा
Hazrat Aisha
सिद्दीक़ा
Siddiqa ta'ala anha relates that at this the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said,
अपने भाइयों को परख लिया करो
you should judge your brothers,
नंबर 2
number one, and number two, that fostering relationship occurs after having a
दोनों बुनियादी बातें
tummy full of milk from a mother, from foster mother. So through
को खुले
this excuse of fostering,
इजाजत देना
to give the permission to every girl that you can mingle
ऐसे शख्स के किरदार
openly,
और उसके हालात
you have to look at the character of such a person as well.
और ज़रात में सभी भाई और ज़रात में ये फर्क
This is the difference between the real brother and this kind of foster brother.
है भड़कती नहीं उसके बरक
Because with a real brother, a person does not get excited in any way.
स्थानीय ख्वाहिश को ठंडा कर देता है
That actually cools down
याद पैदा ही नहीं होती
any kind of desire,
रज़ाई रिश्ते हैं उनकी
physical desire.
तौर पर
But
तकाज़े देखने में नहीं आते
in the foster relationships, the Holy Prophet ﷺ
ये
made two statements.
भाइयों को परख
The first is that you should ascertain and
उनके मुतालिक मालूम कर दिया करो उनके
make enquiries about such brothers, that
के बगैर
how are they known.
के बहाने मिलना जुलना जायज़ नहीं
Otherwise, just with the excuse of fostering, it's not a good thing to be meeting them freely. And the second is that the
उस शख्स को जानते
fostering would only come about
और ये
with
थे
the mother having given a tummy full of milk.
उसकी माँ का पेट भर कर दूध नहीं पिया
So the Holy Prophet ﷺ probably knew this man, otherwise the Holy Prophet ﷺ would not have mentioned this. So in this age there is more need for care, because
हाफिज और पाकबाज मार
that society was a very pure society. Now the society has deviated from the guided path. So with the excuse that this is a brother,
दायरे को आम कर गए
this would
ये मुनासिब
enlarge relationships into areas where it might not be proper. Just to call people as brothers.
और काजी सनाउल्लाह साहब फिर वही एहतियाती तकाज़े पूरे
Qazi Sanaullah Sahib again
करते हैं
has fulfilled his role. He says that
उनमें सिर्फ करीब
out of the women who are forbidden, not only the maternal grandmother, but even maternal grandmother higher than that, that is, the mother of the maternal grandmother is also included.
जो मैं पहले बयान कर चुका हूँ ये
So sir, these far-fetched ideas they have presented, and then the scholars have taken other debates on these verses.
हज़रत इमाम फ़खरुद्दीन राज़ी ने
Hadrat Imam Fakhruddin Razi has quoted from Hadrat Malik bin Auth
कि हज़रत अली
that Hazrat Ali Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu had taken the stance that Rabiba,
लम तकुन फी हिजरिल
about Rabiba, this stepdaughter,
उम्मा बाद में दुखूल
there is whole report he has presented. Huzur is reading that out. That in his estimation, if she was not brought up in your house, that she did not live in the vicinity, that there was no link or ever meeting, she lived elsewhere and brought up elsewhere, the stepdaughter, then after the passing away of the mother or separation from the mother, then there is a possibility, this scholar says, but if she lives in the vicinity and she visits from time to time, then she would also be unlawful for you to marry after separation from the mother. So it is the same discussion. It continues. Huzur says they have long discussions on possibilities, but Huzur says I don't feel that there is any need for these long discussions here. As far as the daughter-in-law is concerned, the wife of your real son is not allowed for you to marry. But then the scholars have discussed whether the son was a stepson, then whether his wife can be married after the husband dying. And they have then spoken of the marriage of the Holy Prophet ﷺ marrying Hazrat Zainab anha after divorce. This was just an adopted son, where just with one statement it was said that a word of mouth that he would be a son. So these are, of course, the forbidding laws, but Huzur says there are some moral grounds which are very important to remember, in which have been taken up by the Holy Quran, and Allah the Almighty has spelt them out. And that is why this discussion of sulb, of being the offspring, this is a scientific discussion as well. So Hazrat Zaid is not linked here at all, because he was not a real son of any kind. Huzur says there is another point which is worthy of reflection, that these scholars, they have tried to link them, that Arab society which made it allowable to marry the widows of the fathers, the widows of the sons. Why are the scholars linking it to the Holy Prophet ﷺ's marriage? Because that society before Islam, that society was drenched in immorality. So for them to bring any allegation upon the Holy Prophet ﷺ is not a valid point at all, because they wouldn't have said anything. the believers had given such great importance to even the word of mouth of the Holy Prophet ﷺ that they, the Muslims, they had thought that this was then like a real son. But Allah the Almighty said that in your good relationship it would be applicable that he would be like a son, that you have said that he's your son, but this is a scientific element brought here, that the relationships of blood and the relationship of milk, they are different, and these directives have got nothing to do with that subject of the marriage of the Holy Prophet ﷺ to the divorced wife of his adopted son. The Promised Messiah ﷺ has mentioned and enumerated all these relationships and then said that in the end Allah the Almighty says what is gone is gone, that those kind of marriages will not be continued. But the only thing is that you are not given any punishment for that. No punishment is prescribed for that act which was done in the past. Azur says, now the time has come to an end, so I will close this subject by reading this excerpt from the Promised Messiah ﷺ. He has presented an excellent strong argument, and he said that here in this verse, وَحَلَائِلُ أَبْنَائِكُمُ الَّذِينَ مِنْ أَصْلَابِكُمْ, that the wives of those sons are forbidden to you, where these sons are your real sons. And this is the directive of Allah the Almighty, while the incident of marrying Hadrat Zainab by the Holy Prophet ﷺ came much later, while these verses had been revealed before. That incident had occurred much later. So now everyone can understand that the Holy Quran has given this decision previously. So nobody's objections were taken into view. The Holy Quran had already given this injunction that the wives of real sons cannot be married. So the Promised Messiah ﷺ has resolved that objection. When people gave this objection, that the Holy Prophet ﷺ gave this excuse that I could marry the Hazrat Zainab because Hazrat Zaid was not a real son. But there is no room for any excuse, because this was not at all linked to the thinking of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. This is from Arya Dharam. Azur says the pages are given and publication is not mentioned, so you should also say that when was it published. So the Promised Messiah ﷺ addresses the Arya and says, you listen to it, you read it in both those references and have some shame. Azur says, okay, now today's dars will end at this, and the rest, inshallah, if there is need, we will continue with that tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. How many minutes for namaz preparation? Azur has been told 10 minutes. Azur said, okay, 10 minutes for the elderly, and for the younger, 3 minutes.